With Caleb's release just a couple of days away, I think it's super important to talk about how the character storylines play into one another, or rather, how they kind of don't. I've noticed from the comments on my Lore Yap videos and the online community recently that a lot of people are still confused about how each love interest fits into the story, and honestly, that's really understandable. So the game doesn't exactly spoon feed you the lore. It's really subtle and sometimes kind of cryptic, and you kind of have to piece it together yourself. While I love that about the game, I get that it's not for everyone, and some might find it overwhelming, frustrating, or even confusing, and that's totally valid. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to spoon feed you. But obviously, I'm not here to tell you how to think. You're free to interpret the story and have your own theories. I'm just here to help you connect the dots. Alright, so before we get into this, I really want to drill this in your head. As I said before, this game does not spoon feed you about the lore, and there are so many hidden subtleties and references that will go over your head if you blink, and you can miss things just like that. So with that being said, what I'm about to share is a mix of facts and my own interpretations and theories based on what I've seen and compiled, along with some theories from the online community that I think make sense. But this game is still being updated and the story is still ongoing. So what I'm about to say now might not be relevant anymore in 4 to 5 months or even a year or two from now as the story of this game evolves. Well, alright, so let's talk about the facts first. The storylines are separated, and this is factual. And I should have mentioned this in the beginning of every Lore Yap videos that I have, and I'm gonna do that from now on. But yeah, this is me telling you that the game is telling us that the storylines are separated. So when you log into the game and select dating, it's written down there at the bottom of the screen. I've been seeing more and more people saying that the myths are connected. Stuff like, oh, Sea God Rafayel's timeline comes first and then main character reincarnates into Zayne's universe. No, this is the game telling us very clearly that no, they are not connected. And this is a classic Otome setup. Each timeline is a self-contained story, and you can dive into one without worrying about the others. Does that make sense? So no, our main character is not cheating on the other love interest by reincarnating from one myth into another. I've been seeing people saying that, and it kills me every time I see it. Each storyline stands on its own, so each myths, they focus entirely on one love interest, and the other love interest does not exist in that myth. The myths are not connected, even though many of them takes place in Philos, and I'll explain this in more detail. Don't worry. Look, I know for some of you this is really obvious, but for others who have never played an Otome game before, or for those who just have no idea what is happening, I really need to emphasize this. Also, if this is your first Otome game, welcome to the club! How does it feel to be a degenerate? Just kidding. We're not degenerates. Or are we? Okay, let's come back to the matter at hand. Let's clear up how the main story fits into all this. So the main story is like a common root. They all exist in it. All the love interests are present and are probably aware of each other. Just like in other Otome games, we might see them interact, and we already kind of did. Yes, they're aware of each other. They know each other, they can interact with each other. The important thing that you need to know is that our main character is neutral in the main story. And this is a typical Otome structure. There's a common root where everyone's storyline overlap, but once you hit a branch, the focus shifts entirely to one love interest. In this game, any romantic interaction, whether through dates, tender moments, secret times, or myths, are clearly separated from the main story. Unless it's a specific branch in the main story, our main character remains neutral. And when you do enter a branch, the focus is on that one love interest, just like how Otome games traditionally work. Now here's something important to clarify. Yes, the main story does imply that all the love interests have some kind of shared past connection with our main character. For example, Rafayel has his bond with her, and she's got the sea god's heart, and Sylus shares a soul with her. And yes, the myths happened. They all exist. They kind of overlap, but it's kind of your choice which one you wanna interact with. So the main story is what we call the canon storyline, where all the love interests exist. It's up to the player to choose which one they want to pursue. In other words, while you can interact with other love interests, the one that you choose is the only one that matters. It's as simple as that. For example, if you pick Sylus's branch when it comes out in the future, you may still interact with Rafayel, Xavier, and Zayne. They might exist in this branch, but this is Sylus's branch, and they're just side characters in his branch. Only Sylus's myth will be relevant and drive the plot forward. It is the same for any other love interest you choose. If you choose Zayne, for example, then his myth is the one that'll matter, and the others will kind of fade into the background. This is important to note because it completely debunks any theory suggesting that a particular love interest met our main character first. All the love interest met our main character first in their own myths. There's no first one to meet in the main storyline, and that's what makes the branching system work so well. But again, I could be wrong, but the game clearly states that it's separated. Maybe it'll change in the future, I don't know. So for those of you who are not familiar with Otome games, this is usually how things work. Each love interest branch is completely separate from the others. Typically, in Otome games, whichever branch you pick will have its own unique ending tied specifically to that love interest story and character arc. This structure helps keep each love interest storyline focused and ensures players can explore different outcomes without overlap or confusion. Okay, now that the facts are out of the way, this is where my theory comes in. Since Infold explicitly states that the storylines are separated, I think it's very safe to say that all of this is happening in parallel universes. I know, stay with me now. So I think the connections in the main story are a part of the bigger picture, but each love interest has their own separate storyline that exists in its own world. Now, when it says the storylines are separated, that doesn't mean they're completely isolated from each other in time. It still leaves room for the possibility that everything is happening all at once, but in different parallel universes. Each universe runs its own storyline independently, but they could be occurring simultaneously in these separate worlds. So I don't think this theory is too far-fetched, since this is a sci-fi fantasy game, and the concept of parallel universes has been explored before, like in Dawnbreaker Zayne, for example. Now let's deep dive into this theory about how time and timelines work in Love and Deepspace. And I'm not gonna lie, it's one of those mind-bending concepts, so hang in there with me. Let's hold hands, stay with me. I'm gonna show you a clip from chapter 1 of the game, basically the prologue of this game.
Day 1326. Attention. Target anchor lost. No response from base. Traceback 2 is about to pass the event horizon and enter the black hole. We are stuck in this loop. This never-ending journey.
Right off the bat, the game is hinting that time is not going to be linear. And trust me, that's something you really need to grasp if you want to understand what's going on here. So I'm going to talk about black holes for a little bit. Please stay with me. So what happens to time inside a black hole? According to physics, the gravity is so intense that it wraps both time and space, causing them to behave in ways we can't fully understand. Time doesn't just stretch, it essentially breaks down and stops functioning the way we know it. It disappears into itself, no longer following the usual rules we are familiar with. And this is exactly why the game is so mind-bending, especially when it comes to timelines. The minute I realized Love and Deepspace has black holes, space travels, time loops, different realities, and all this other mind-bending stuff, I just know we're not dealing with a simple, straightforward timeline anymore. Because when you're dealing with space travel, parallel universes, and time travelers, Xavier, it's going to be messy, unpredictable, and honestly, a total mindfuck. So don't worry too much about timelines. Trying to make sense of everything in a strict chronological order isn't going to get you anywhere. When we're talking about time travel, parallel universes, and everything happening all at once, there's no neat and tidy timeline to follow. The best thing you can do is just enjoy the ride. But I know some people still get caught up in trying to fit everything into a timeline, and frankly, you're just gonna hurt your brain, man. And just to support this theory, I'm gonna get into Xavier's anecdotes from World Underneath, because he touches on something kind of similar to what I just said. And I'm gonna read it with you. Some say that from a higher dimensional perspective, time doesn't exist. The past, present, and future unfold in the same space. A person can only see the world before them because their eyes can only perceive the light projected from it. If this is true, somewhere in the vast cosmos, there might exist a point where light from countless timelines converges. From there, one could see every star that ever existed, from the explosion of the universe to its eventual collapse, and witness every possible ending the world could take under an infinite number of choices. Guys, it's literally everything everywhere all at once. I think this is exactly what is happening here. The game is telling us that everything is happening simultaneously across different realities. Think of it like a giant cosmic web of possibilities where every timeline exists at once and our perception is just one small piece of it. And it's wild, it's chaotic, but I guess that's the beauty of it. Sometimes we gotta remind ourselves this is a sci-fi fantasy game. And yeah, this brings me back to the core of my theory. It's all happening in parallel universes. Time is not linear, and every choice, every event is unfolding in its own universe, existing at the same time as all the others. The love interest? They each have their own independent storylines, but they're all happening simultaneously in different realities. Zayne's myth matters in his world, Sylus is in his, but that doesn't mean the others cease to exist. They're just operating within their own separate universes. So even though each love interest story is isolated, they're a part of a larger interconnected web of realities. And this is why trying to fit everything into a strict timeline, in my opinion, just don't really work. The game is telling us from the start that time isn't linear and that everything happens at once in different dimensions and timelines that overlap. So maybe embrace the chaos and stop trying to force everything into a linear sequence. Everything exists at the same time, just in different parallel universes. And again, this is just my opinion. Time is messy, and that's what makes this whole experience so mind-bending. God, I love this game. We all get it in one big package. We get the beautiful hot man who yearns for us and the spicy moments, and then we get the mind-bending, super deep, well-written stories as well. And then we make the love interests catch plushies for us, and then we watch them fail miserably. They're giving us everything, and a period tracker too. But yeah, that was a lot. Are you still here with me? I wouldn't be surprised if people clicked off in the middle of the video, because when I was writing the script, I had to take a lot of breaks because my brain was hurting, trying to piece this all together. But if you're still here, thank you for sticking with me, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I originally wanted to talk about our main character as well in this video, but there's already so much information in this video and I don't want to overwhelm you. Well, more like I don't want to overwhelm myself. But yeah, leave a like if you want, and consider subscribing if you like hearing me yap about this game. And yes, Xavier girlies, the next video is gonna be about your man, don't worry. I got you, girl. Alright, well thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!